Welcome to Motivational Monday. This is Fed Zach, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. Today, I'd like to break down how important it is to hear the right message at the right time with the right context. But before we start, make sure to like, subscribe, and do share, especially if you find value in this presentation. So many a time we are inundated today with motivational this and, all these books about Steve Jobs or someone about, Bill Gates, or a book about, this wealthy person, Warren Buffett. Everybody has a book today, okay, about their lives and how they made it. And the preface to this is really just over the weekend, a friend of mine was telling me how he was going into certain, clienteles, and actually one of his clients gave him a book of Donald Trump. And it was kind of funny because this guy was completely not a Donald Trump kind of guy, and it was just context-wise, it was just completely off, especially in the type of industry that they're in. And it was just kind of funny. We were both chuckling over it. And I had read some excerpts of Donald Trump's book. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but here's the thing, all right? When you are exposed to one of these mega people that do some phenomenal stuff in their lives, okay, it doesn't necessarily that you can recreate it in your life. Yes, you could draw lessons from what their techniques were and how they repeated success. Yes, that you can do. But many a times, and I see this with especially younger generation, I see this with my son right now and a friend of mine's son I saw about 10 years ago, where they love to read this book about this massive person, and vicariously they're living their dream through this person by reading this book. That's exactly what we're doing. When we watch a movie, what we're doing is that we're living vicariously at the main character of that movie, right? None of us can be Jason Bourne, right? But we watch that movie thinking that we're Jason Bourne or James Bond or wherever it is, right? And the point is that in our context, in our life, what we are right now doesn't mean that we can't be somewhere way ahead of where we are right now. But in the context of where we are right now, we have to come up with solutions. We have to come up with a game plan. We have to come up with techniques. We have to come up with a system that maximizes ourselves right now that we could then level up to the next stage. That's the key. So if you are, introduced to one of these books about these famous investors or these fantastic personalities that did some amazing things in their respective lives, just be aware of the fact that you have to just bring it down to your level and use those techniques on your level. Yes, like I said, you may get to that level sometime in the future. However, right now, you have to actualize it to what it's relevant today. Right? So if a person's just starting out with their work and they're just trying to fill out where they really find themselves, what industry they want to find themselves, or at their next stage of life, right? Where they've been in a job for about 4 or 5 years and they've kind of like settled themselves in and they're not sure which way to go. And usually the biggest thing that pushes a person anywhere is that they start a family and expenses started growing and then they're forced into that next role. And that is completely okay, all right? That's not, no challenge to everybody. But the point is that, when we're forced into something as opposed to when we anticipate something, it's much more powerful when we anticipate something, when we go into something before we know it. Now, I don't suggest, or I'm not, a person who's saying that you should get married at 40 or 50 or whatever it is, but you should anticipate that next stage in life so that you can maximize yourself right here so you could bring yourself and continue building yourself throughout your career. That's a planned, even though you say to yourself, okay, 20 years later, you say, yeah, I planned it all. You didn't plan it all, but you planned it 4 to 5 years in advance. And if you could plan and pace yourself 45 years. Now, I remember having a conversation with one of my suppliers a long time ago, and he was telling me how he was in his late 40s, going into his 50s, and he was trying to, build his end of his career, right, as he was looking to retire into his mid-50s, late 60s to enjoy the latter part of his life. He was telling me how, that this was his game plan, that he had planned this all along. However, he didn't know specifically how he would get to that last position, but he did know, what the rest of the plan was. And as I've said it many, many times, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Even if you need to, realign that plan sometime, it's so important to have that plan initially to know how to move it up and how to step it up to that next level. Thank you for joining me for this Motivational Mondays. We'll see you here next week.